Hey, yo, what's up? Welcome back to the second episode of Purpose, Passion, and Love TV. This is where we talk about the journey to self-awareness, self-improvement, um, and the journey to purpose. When we left the last time, y'all make sure that you hit that like button. Y'all know the routine. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Subscribe if you saw the first episode and you thinking about it. Uh, and please share the videos. Make sure you leave a comment too. So, like on that first video, I talked about accountability and how this road to self-awareness and fulfilling purpose, how it's not easy. Um, that it ain't for the faint of heart. I think is how I said that the first time around. So, you know, when you realize that it's something missing from your life and you trying to fill that hole that's on the inside, regardless of what kind of things you have built up around you. The first step is that self accountability. You got to ask yourself, what is it about me that's got me in the position that I'm in? And that's the tough part. So when it happened for me, that was when I flunked out of school. This was years ago, flunking out of college, losing a full football scholarship, disappointing myself, disappointing a lot of people. Um, and it still didn't hit me like right away. But once I got home, I came home for a few months, and initially my plan, I told myself I'm gonna go to community college. I'm gonna get my grades up. I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna get back to playing ball and get back on my original plan. Well, that didn't happen. I did go to community college, but I still wasn't doing nothing in the classroom. A few months later, found out my first child was on the way, and then that's when the what hit the fan at that point. So I really didn't have much choice. It was at that point that I had to ask myself, Reg, what's going on, man? What is it? What is it about you? What is it about the way that you've been living, conducting your life that's got you in this position? Because I really shouldn't have been in that position. Um, you know, not considering the gifts I got. Now, being older, I understand that everything is part of God's plan, whether we like it or not. I realized that once I got older. But at the time, I ain't know no better. So I'm asking myself, you know, what is it? And, you know, being tough enough to go through the steps to change those things, that's one thing. But it's a whole nother animal to admit to yourself where you are jacked up, shall we say. So it was at that point, I got a son on the way. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. But first, I got to figure out how I wound up in this position so that I can fix some of those things. And what I found out about myself at the time, and it was tough admitting some of this stuff to myself. It's hard thinking about it now. Some of it has lingered. You don't really realize how deep rooted stuff is. But if you think I called it at 19. So that's about at least 16 years, right? You don't, nobody, it's hard to tell when when that type of stuff start. But you say at least 16 years of those bad thought processes. I always thought that I had pretty good self-esteem, but I was fooling myself. And I thought I was fooling a lot of other people, but some folks probably could see through it. But it showed up in a lot of ways. It showed up in relationships I chose. It showed up in friends I chose. It showed up in activities that I took part in. Um, trying to be part of the crew. It's a whole bunch of stuff. I had to admit to myself that I was lazy. Oh man, it's a whole bunch of things. It's a whole bunch of things. And it led to, of course, when you making decisions about your life and when you moving in your life with those types of things mentally and spiritually plaguing you, that lead into other things and stuff snowball. And like you see people that's struggling with certain things, and you might say they should have had that fixed by now, or what's taking them so long to get right, or you don't know what them people dealing with. You don't know what them people dealing with, and that's part of this platform, and it's part of why I wanted to start a platform like this. So let's get into it a little bit. Once I figured that out, once I started to be able to name certain things as to why I wound up flunking out of school. It ain't no way I should have flunked out of school. I was blessed with too much intelligence. And it run on both sides of my family, my mama and my daddy's side. So it ain't no way in the world I should have flunked out of school. I was a dude that really, I didn't work out like I should have, being an athlete. But I still competed well with dudes that ate weights in the weight room. So I was blessed athletically. Still, I was in that place. And so once I figured out and was able to name some of them things that I had to fix, then you got to go about deciding not only how to fix them, but where do you go with your life from there? And once I asked that question, where do I go with my life from there? That's when I started to tap into why God gave me this gift of writing. So if you don't know, I do have a book it's a book of poetry that's available on Amazon. It's called Purpose, Passion, and Love. It goes by the same title as this YouTube channel, which is Purpose, Passion, and Love TV. The book is Purpose, Passion, and Love, The Heart of a Man. The link will be in the description of this video. So like I said, please share the video, like the video, leave me a comment or two on the subject matter. Show this video to your friends and get ready for episode 3 when we get into more specifically what types of struggles, those negative mindsets and habits that I had in my particular life created for me. And not only what they created, but how long they lasted and how tough it is to get out of some of those ruts. And hopefully by doing that, we can keep some people out of that. Hopefully by sharing my story and continuing to share my story, we can help some people start to pull themselves out of that particular hole if you're in it. Some people are raised in a certain way to where they stay connected to themselves, and everybody have mistakes in life, but those people that are able to stay connected to themselves, it's a little bit easier to get up, and it's a little bit easier to stay on whatever path that they decided that they wanted once they left high school or left home, or whatever their particular case may be. So, like I said, we want to keep these short. We don't want to be too long-winded with it. But next episode, we're going to get into exactly what some of those things led to for me and how tough it's been for me to crack the walls and break down some of those walls. And you might be surprised to know that some of them I'm still fighting with. Purpose, Passion, and Love TV, y'all. Episode 2. Y'all come back and join me next time.